She sat down upon a bank there and let down her waving locks of hair, which were all pure silver. And when Curdken saw it glitter in the sun, he ran up and would have pulled some of the locks out, but she cried out, "Blow, breeze, blow! Let Curdken hat go! Blow, breeze, blow! Let him after it go! O'er hills, dare, and rocks, away be it whirled, till the silvery locks are all combed and curled." Then there came a wind so strong that it blew off Curdken's hat, and away it flew over the hills, and he after it, till by the time he came back, she had done combing and curling her hair, and put it up again safe. Then he was very angry and sulky, and would not speak to her at all, but they watched the geese until it grew dark in the evening, and then drove them homewards. The next morning, as they were going through the dark gate, the poor girl looked up at Falada's head and cried, "Falada, Falada, there art thou hanging." And it answered, "Bride, bride, there thou art gagging. Alas, alas, if thy mother knew it, sadly, sadly, her heart would rue it." Then she drove the geeses and sat down in the meadow and began to comb out her hair as before, and Curdken ran up to her and wanted to take hold of it, but she cried out quickly, "Blow, breeze, blow! Let Curdken's hat go! Blow, breeze, blow! Let him after it go! O'er hills, dales, and rocks, away be it whirled, till the silvery locks are all combed and curled." Then the wind came and blew off his hat, and off it flew a great way, over the hills and far away, so that he had to run after it. When he came back, she had done up her hair again, and all was safe. So they watched the geese till it grew dark. In the evening, after they came home, Curdken went to the old king and said, "I cannot have that strange girl to help me to keep these geese any longer." "Why?" said the king. "Because she does nothing but tease me all day long." Then the king made him tell all that had passed, and Curdken said, "When we go in the morning through the dark gate with our flocks of geese, she weeps and talks with the head of the horse that hangs upon the walls, and says, 'Falada, Falada, there art thou hanging.' And the head answered, 'Bride, bride, there art ganging. Alas, alas, if thy mother knew, sadly, sadly, her heart would rue it.'" And Curdken went on telling the king what had happened upon the meadow where the geese fed, and how his hat had blown away, and he was forced to run after it and leave his flock. But the old king told him to go out again as usual the next day, and when morning came, he placed himself behind the dark gate and heard how she spoke to Falada, and how Falada answered. And when he went into the field and hid himself behind a bush by the meadow's side, and soon saw with his own eyes how they drove the flock of geese, and how after a little time she let down her hair that glittered in the sun. And then he heard her say, "Blow, breeze, blow, let Curdken's hat go. Blow, breeze, blow, let him after it go. O'er hills, dares, and rocks, away it be whirled, till the silvery locks are all combed and curled." And soon came a gale of wind and carried away Curdken's hat, while the girl went on combing and curling her hair. All this the old king saw, so he went home without being seen and went to the little goose girl. So he went home without being seen, and when the little goose girl came back in the evening, he called her aside and asked her why she did so. But she burst into tears and said that I must not tell you or any man, or I shall lose my life. But the old king begged so hard that she had no peace till she had told him, word for word, and it was very lucky for her that she did so, for the king ordered royal clothes to be put upon her, and gazed on her with wonder. She was so beautiful. Then he called his son and told him that he had only the false bride, for that she was merely a waiting maid, while the true one stood by. And the young king rejoiced when he saw her beauty, and how meek and patient she had been, and without saying anything ordered a great feast to be got ready for all of his court. And the bridegroom sat at the top, with the false princess on one side and the true one on the other. But nobody knew her, for she was quite dazzling to their eyes, and was not at all like the little goose girl now that she had her brilliant dress. When they had eaten and drank and were very merry, the old king told all the story, as one that he had once heard of, and asking the true waiting maid what she thought ought to be done to anyone who behaved thus. "Nothing better," said this false bride, "than that she should be thrown into a cask, struck around with sharp nails, and the 2 white horses should be put to it, and should drag it from street to street till she is dead." "Thou art she," said the old king, "and since thou hast judged thyself, it shall be done to thee." The young king was married to his true wife, and they reigned over the kingdom in peace and happiness all their lives. Faithful John. Oh, my door's open. Let's fix that real quick. That's better. Faithful John. An old king fell sick, and when he found his end drawing near, he said, "Let faithful John come to me." Now faithful John was the servant that he was fondest of, and was so called because he had been true to his master all his life long. Then when he came to the bedside, and the king said, "My faithful John, I feel that my end draws nigh, and I have now no cares for my son, who is still young, and stands in need of good counsel. I have no friend to leave him but you. if you do not pledge yourself to teach him all he should know, and to be a father to him, I shall not shut my eyes in peace." Then John said, "I will never leave him, but will serve him faithfully, even though it should cost me my life." And the king said, "I shall now die in peace. After my death show him the whole palace, all the rooms and vaults, and all the treasure and stores which lie there. But it cares how you show him one room. I mean the one where hangs the picture of the daughter of the king of the golden roof. If he sees it, he will fall deeply in love with her, and will be plunged into great dangers on her account. Guard him in this peril." And when faithful John had once more pledged his word to the old king, he laid his head on his pillow and died in peace. Now when the king had been carried to his grave, faithful John told the young king what had passed upon his deathbed, and said, "I will keep my word truly, and be faithful to you, as I always to your father, though it should cost me my life." And the young king wept and said, "Neither will I ever forget your faithfulness." The days of mourning passed away, and then faithful John said to his master, "It is now time that you should see your heritage. I will show you your father's palace." Then he led him about everywhere, up, down, and let him see all the riches and all the costly rooms. Only one room where the picture stood he did not open. Now the picture was so placed that the moment the door opened, you would see it. And it was so beautifully done that one would think it breathed and had life, and that there was nothing more lovely in the whole world. When the young king saw that faithful John always went by this door, he said, "Why do you not open that room?" "There is something inside," he answered, "which would frighten you." But the king said, "I have seen the whole palace, and I must also know what is in there." And he went and began to force open the door. But faithful John held him back and said, "I gave my word to your father before his death that I would take heed how I show you what stands in that room, lest it should lead you and me into great trouble." "The greatest trouble to me," said the young king, "will be to not go in and see the room. I shall have no peace by day or by night until I do. So I shall not go hence until you open it." Then faithful John saw that with all he could do or say, that young king would have his way. So with a heavy heart and many foreboding signs, he sought for the key of his great bunch, and he opened the door of the room and entered in first, so as to stand between the king and the picture, hoping he might not see it. But he raised himself upon tiptoes and looked over John's shoulder, and as soon as he saw the likeness of the lady so beautiful and shining with gold, he fell upon the floor senseless. Then Faithful John lifted him up in his arms and carried him to his bed, and was full of care, and thought to himself, "This trouble has come upon us. O heaven, what will come of it?" At last the king came to himself, but the first thing that he said was, "Whose is that beautiful picture?" "It is the picture of the daughter of the king of the golden roof," said Faithful John. But the king went on saying, My love towards her is so great that all the leaves on the trees were tongues. They could not speak it. I care not to risk my life to win her. You are my faithful friend. You must aid me." Then John thought for a long time what was now to be done, and at length said to the king, "All that she has about her is of gold. The tables, stools, cups, dishes, and all the things in her house are of gold, and she is always seeking new treasures. Now, in your stores there is much gold. Let it be worked up into every kind of vessel, and into all sorts of birds, wild beasts, and wonderful animals. Then we will take it and try our fortune." So the king ordered all the goldsmiths to be sought for, and they worked day and night until at last the most beautiful things were made, and Faithful John had a ship loaded with them, and put on a merchant's dress, and the king did the same, that they might not be known. When all was ready, they put out to sea and sailed till they came to the coast of the land where the king of the golden roof reigned. Faithful John told the king to stay in the ship and wait for him. "For perhaps," said he, "I may be able to bring away the king's daughter with me. Therefore take care that everything be in order. Let the golden vessels and ornaments be brought forth, and the whole ship be decked out with them." Excuse me. And he chose out something of each of the golden things to put into his basket, and got ashore, and went towards the king's palace. And when he came to the castle yard, there stood by the well side a beautiful maiden who had 2 golden pails in her hand, drawing water, and as she drew the water, which was glittering with gold, she turned herself around and saw the stranger, and asked him who he was. Then he drew near and said, "I am a merchant," and opened his basket and let her look into it, and she cried out, "Oh, what beautiful things!" and set down her pails and looked at one after the other. Then she said, The king's daughter must see all these. She is so fond of such things that she will buy all of you." So she took him by the hand and led him in, for she was one of the waiting maids of the daughter of the king. When the princess saw the wares, she was greatly pleased, and said, "They are so beautiful that I will buy them all." But Faithful John said, "I am only the servant of a rich merchant. What I have here is nothing to what he has lying on in yonder ship. There he has the finest, most costly things that ever were made in gold." The princess wanted to have them all brought ashore, but he said, "That would take up many days. there are such a number, and more rooms would be wanted to place them in than there are in the greatest house. But she wished to see But her wish to see them grew greater still, and at last she said, "Take me to the ship. I will go myself and look at your master's wares." Then Faithful John led her joyfully to the ship, and the king went when he saw her, thought his heart would leap out of his breast. And it was with the greatest trouble that he kept himself still. So she got into the ship, and the king led her down. But Faithful John stayed behind with the steersman and ordered the ship to put off. "Spread all your sails," he cried, "that she may fly over the waves like a bird through the air." The king showed the princess the gold wares, each one singly, the dishes, cups, basin, the wild and the wonderful beasts, so that many hours flew by, and she looked at everything with delight, and was not aware that the ship was sailing away. And after she had looked at the last, she thanked the merchant, and she said she would go home. But when she came upon the deck, she saw the ship sailing far away from the land upon the deep sea, and that it flew along at full sail. "Alas!" she cried out in her fright, "I am betrayed! I am carried off, and have fallen into the power of a roving traitor. I would sooner have died." But then the king took her by the hand and said, "I am not a merchant. I am a king, and of as noble birth as you. I have taken you away by stealth, but I did so because of the very great love I have for you. For the first time that I saw your face, I fell on the ground in a swoon." When the daughter of the king of the golden roof heard all, she was comforted, and her heart soon turned towards him, and she was willing to become his wife. But it so happened that whilst they were sailing into the deep sea, Faithful John, as he sat on the prow of the ship playing on his flute, saw 3 ravens flying in the air towards him. Then he left off playing and listened to what they said to each other, for he understood their tongue. The first said, "There he goes. He is bearing away the daughter of the king of the golden roof. Let him go." "Nay," said the second, "there he goes, but he has not got her yet." And the third said, "There he goes. He surely has her, for she is sitting by his side on the ship." Then the first began again, and cried out, "What boots it to him? See you not that when they come to land, a horse of a foxy red color will spring towards him, and then he will try to get upon it, and if he does, it will spring away with him into the air, so that he will never see his love again." "True, true," said the second. "But is there no help?" "Oh, yes, yes," said the first. If if he who sits upon the horse takes the dagger which is struck in the saddle and strides him dead, the young king is saved. But who knows that? And who will tell him that he who thus saves the king's life will turn to stone from the toes of his feet to his knees? Then the second said, True, true. But I know more still. Though the horse be dead, the king loses his bride. When they go together into the palace, there lies a bridal dress on the couch, and looks as if it were woven of gold and silver, but it is all brimstone and pitch. And if he puts it on, he will burn, and if he puts it on, it will burn him, marrow and bones. Alas, alas, is there no help? Said the third. Oh, yes, yes, said the second. If someone draws near and throws it into the fire, the young king will be saved. But what boots that? Who knows? And will tell him that if he does, his body from the knee to the heart will be turned to stone. More, more, I know more, said the third. Where the dress burnt, still the king loses his bride. After the wedding, when the dance brings, the young queen dances on. She will turn pale and fall as though she were dead. And if someone does not draw near and lift her up and take from her right breast 3 drops of blood, she will surely die. But if anyone knew this, he would tell him that if he does so, his body will turn to stone, from the crown of his head to the tip of his toe.
Then the ravens flapped their wings and flew on, but faithful John, who had understood it all from that time, was sorrowful, and did not tell his master what he had heard, for he saw that if he told him, he must himself lay down his life to save him. At last he said to himself, I will be faithful to my word, and save my master, if it costs me my life. Now when they came to land, it happened just as the ravens had foretold. For there sprang out a fine foxy red horse. See, said the king, he shall bear me to the palace. And he tried to mount, but faithful John leapt before him, and swung himself quickly upon it, drew the dagger, and smote the horse to death. Then the other servants of the king, who were jealous of faithful John, cried out, What a shame to kill a fine beast that was to take the king to his palace. But the king said, Let him alone. It is my faithful John, who knows, but he did it for some good end. Then they went on to the castle, and there stood on a couch in one room, and a fine dress lay upon it, that shone with gold and silver. And the young king went up to take hold of it, but faithful John cast it in the fire and burnt it. And the other servants began to grumble and said, See how he is burning the wedding dress? But the king said, Who knows what he did it for? Let him alone. He is my faithful servant John. When the wedding feast was held and the